to be perfectly honest, we're fed up of watching County Council just allow their buildings to go into neglect. After all, these are assets of the county, and they're not performing even basic maintenance. And these are fine buildings which can be saved. And yes, I know that the site is probably worth 5, 6, 7 million pounds to a developer who could probably shoehorn 100 flats in here. But I think sometimes it's not just about money, it's about saving your town's heritage. We've lost far too many fine buildings in recent times.
These buildings, of course, aren't listed. Isn't that one of the problems?
Yeah, sadly, they're not listed. There was an attempt to list them. I think, if I remember rightly, I've got the paperwork at home, it was 2007. Sadly, the listed buildings officer didn't see them as being of sufficient architectural merit. I would argue that they are, although I'm no expert in these things. I mean, these are mid-Victorian, and there's very few examples of mid-Victorian properties actually in the town. He did say that they were of local interest. There is a long history associated with the Willows. It's been in council ownership, I believe, in excess of 80 years, and it's had many uses. And I truthfully believe that another use could be found for it.
What do you think the prospects are of the county council itself putting either the buildings or the site to some use?
I think they will put it to some use. It's prime real estate. They will at some point. Sadly, I have it on reasonable authority that the greatest probability for this site is demolition, including very possibly the library. Where the library would be relocated to, I don't know, but I'd like to see this part of town, because it's so central, within walking distance for all the new residents who live in the town centre, old folks, young families, etc. Some sort of community hub, library, local drop-in services for council, etc. And in an ideal world, and I know museums don't make any money and they're heavily subsidised, etc., would be the town's museum, because we do have a huge collection of antiquities, etc., that do need to be displayed, and sadly at the moment they're just sitting in storage. So a town museum could be a big tourist attraction.
Today you've actually had to gain your own access to the site.
Yes, we have.
Presumably you've made the county council aware that you're going to do this.
Fair notice through local media.
What reaction have you had from the county council?
Well, we had a stock response from the PR department, which was that local services would be dispatched as a matter of urgency to do some basic maintenance. But me personally, I just feel that's a stock response in reaction to what we said we were going to do. We are committing trespass. However, we've had it looked at, and we haven't come in here to do damage. We're all aware of health and safety, etc. We're removing some of the self-seeded willows and I don't know what other trees you are, beech and elm, and just trying to arrest the decay of what's happening to this building.
I've lived in the house opposite to the Willows for the last 47.5 years. In that time, we were the authority for whom I worked, the county council. Our headquarters was in this building at the Beechfield. Then, when the flood happened in September 2008, the library was evacuated, and the purpose for which the buildings were used for was just storage for about 12 months. Then I believe the library staff were transferred to the county hall, and the buildings were left derelict. I've been trying for the last 3.5 years to get something out of the senior estates officer, and all I get is it's under consideration. And now I believe it's beyond economic repair, which I think is absolutely rubbish. I fail to understand how the authorities that be, such as the estates office, can allow a property such as this to fall into disrepair. I don't understand it. And I feel very, very aggrieved that the county now have classed it as being not of economic value to repair.
So what do you fear will happen to the property?
I fear that the county will sell the property for demolition work and use the ground for some sort of housing development, possibly a care home.
What would you like to see happen to the buildings?
I would like to see a developer move in and strip out refurbish all the buildings and convert them into apartments.
And what do you think about the fact that people have taken the situation into their own hands to try to tidy it up a bit?
Very good, especially some of the local councillors who are showing an interest, but they're town councillors, not county councillors. And I think their opinions don't count for very much at the moment. It's the county councillors that are putting the block on any development here. But I know about 20 odd years ago, on the Willows, the block to my right now, it had a very bad case of dry rot, and I believe thousands and thousands of pounds were spent on rectifying this by ripping all the dry rot out and replacing.
This was before the floods, of course.
Oh yes. Well, I've worked for the county council for 26 years, and I've seen developments here that should not have been. So I'm not hopeful with the progress.
In the short term, I'd like to see some basic maintenance done. You know, for instance, the cleaning out of gutters, because one of the biggest enemies of old property, or any property for that matter, is water ingress. They need to be kept watertight. You need to keep the pigeons out the roof, etc. You know, cleaning out the gullies and valleys, and you know, a property should be mothballed correctly, and this hasn't been.
What do you think the feeling is amongst people in Morpeth generally about
I think an awful lot of people actually don't know these buildings exist, because as you can see, this is the less pretty side, as it were. This was the service entrance where the carriages would come in, etc. But the front of the buildings, it's the other side of the buildings, it's the fine side. But that's not to say if this whole area wasn't to be redeveloped, that a new entrance couldn't be brought in from the front to the pretty side, as it were. But I mean, as you can see, you know, it's well put together, beautiful stone masonry, mullioned windows. There's some top joinery in there which is still in good condition. I believe that the staircases could certainly be saved. That said, if the only thing that could be saved about these buildings is the shell, then so be it. You know, I'm all for progress and change, and I think that, you know, if the guts of the building had to be absolutely stripped out, I'd be happy to actually see the exteriors, the shells preserved, and the insides be, you know, the most modern architecture there is. You know, perhaps a glass atrium linking the two buildings. I mean, you know, we need someone with a bit of imagination down here who could put these buildings to good use for the benefit of Morpeth and everyone in it.
Right.